right, if everybody's here, Mr. Jones.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Good point.
Mr. Jones.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor, members of council. So, a few weeks ago, I sent you a memo that outlined several projects that we were reevaluating. One of those projects is the convention center expansion. And what we'd like to do tonight is, between Tom Murray and Mike Davis, reacquaint you with the vision of what the convention center expansion would do, as well as talk with you a little bit about some of the difficulties we've had in the construction environment, and then lastly have Tom come back up again and talk a little bit about the return on investment. So that's the succinct presentation that we're providing tonight. So what we'll do is I'll turn it over to Tom.
Good evening.
Thank
Thank
you
you for the opportunity to speak with you all again. As you know, this is now, I think, the sixth time we've been before you about the Convention Center project. And just to remind you that the project began after a 2015 study about the competitiveness of the Convention Center. And the outcome of that pointed to a competitive weakness that we had, in that we didn't have as much breakout space as the cities that we compete with, and we were losing business to that. So we designed a way to make ourselves re-competitive and address the number two reason why we lost business to the competition. Now, we also addressed a major irritant for our meeting planners, in that our host hotel for major conventions was not officially connected to hotels. And so we, by putting a bridge across Stonewall, we were able to cause that connection and also complement the development that is across the street, and further our ability to someday connect with the rail trail. And as future developments in the convention center happen over the years, we may be able to run the rail trail beside or between the convention center. Today, that bridge will bring you right into the middle of the convention center where the meeting space is being reconfigured. I'm going to bring Mike up and ask him to talk about some of the project work that we've been doing to date.
No problem. Good evening. My name is Mike Davis. I serve as city engineer in the General Services Department. I want to talk a little bit about this project and the method that we used, and kind of describe it along a timeline of major activities. And this project started really in earnest with the design phase in January of 2017, when we hired TVS as a designer. And that process really looks the same at the beginning as any other method of delivery. What we used in this process is something called Construction Manager at Risk, which I want to just give you a little bit of info about as we go along. But rather than a traditional design bid build process where you would go all the way through to the design process and put the construction documents out to bid, the advantage of a construction manager at risk process, one of the advantages is you get to bring in construction expertise early in the design process. So in our case, we did an RFQ and selected a joint venture of Holder, Edison Ford, and RJ Leeper Construction, some of whom are here tonight, to bring their expertise to the city to help in the design process. One of the things that does for us is, as the architect is producing those design drawings, we're able to benefit from that construction expertise, and there's efficiencies built into the process when we're able to do that, rather than waiting till the end. The other thing it lets us do is get cost estimates done with the help of that construction manager along the way. So in this case, we had 3 different estimates that brought us to a moment in time, November 26, 2018, which is when we came before you to ask for the award of a $98 million construction manager at risk contract. After we negotiated, executed, and finalized the agreement with Holder, Edison, Ford, Leeper, which for convenience we'll call Heffel. I think they've self-named themselves Heffel. Heffel then begins bidding those construction packages. And again, one thing that makes this a little bit different than the traditional method, Heffel would not self-perform the work. What they're doing is managing that construction activity, and they're putting those construction packages out for bid. And so as those bids start coming back in and they're determined to be higher than what had been predicted through those series of construction cost estimates, that's when a lot of the heavy value engineering work was occurring. So that was kind of an iterative process based on those packages coming back. And then where that leads us to tonight is, after doing a lot of that value engineering work to try to bring those costs back down as low as possible, we're at a place where we're requesting or recommending $11.9 million of additional funding to enable construction to go forward. One thing that's different about this vote than where we were earlier on the timeline is this version comes with what's called a guaranteed maximum price. Because the bids have now been opened, this is no longer in the realm of estimating those values. These are now known quantities for that construction contract, so there's less risk at this point. The other slide I have for you is just to talk a little bit about major findings from a review of those bids. So understand that when this work is bid, it's not one single set of construction drawings. It's 50, in this case, 51 bid packages, all made up of different types of things that go into the project. And then normally what you'll see is, some will be over, some be under the estimates, and it all works towards the original projected value. In this case, we had 22 that exceeded their individual estimates, and some of them were very significant. And so what I've done here is just list some of the major overages. This is not the comprehensive list, but probably where we saw the most overage on some of the individual packages. And what we get by what we've learned through our interactions with Heffel on our team is that the real driving factor here has been a lack of subcontractor competition. So when that estimation work is going on, Heffel would communicate with subcontractors who are anticipated to bid. There's a time value of money that's put into that, so that there's an escalation for what we think people will actually bid on bid day. In the end, we had few people turn out for many of these packages. So 14 out of 27 trades received 0 or 1 bid, and another 5 trades received only 2 bids. So we're really in a competitive labor market, particularly for building construction right now. So I'm available for questions, but I'm going to turn it back over to Tom.
So the good news is that when we told you that we thought that this meeting space would make us more competitive, we've been in the process of bidding, because all the business that we book is booked usually 3 to 5, even greater years out. And the space has been highly sought after. In fact, we've booked already $35 million worth of business in the first couple of years after construction is complete. I was asked earlier about the return on investment. So when we came to you with the JLL study, we proposed that the investment would be returned in 7.7 years. Or with 5 new citywide bookings and 7 potentially new smaller ones. The good news is we're way beyond that pace. We, for 23, we're 50% up over our normal pace, and for 24, we're 67% over that pace. So we're now lowering the estimate on the return on investment to 6 years. So the study was accurate. It told us that this was going to be something that was highly sought after. It's enabled us to book larger pieces of business that we were not normally able to get. And so we're very pleased by that. So as Mike pointed out, we're looking to request an action to authorize the city manager to negotiate and award a guaranteed maximum price of $114,500,000 to Holder, Edison, Ford, Liebherr and Company for construction manager at risk services for the Convention Center Phase 1 renovation project. And we'd also ask that we adopt a budget ordinance appropriating $11.9 million from the Convention Center tax fund for the Convention Center Phase 1 renovation. We're both available for questions.
Okay, all right. Any other comment from the staff? So Dr. Harlow?
Thank you. Thanks, Mayor. So real quick, Mike, we talk about, we have this conversation all the time in ED committee about subcontracting opportunities. We understand there's, a squeeze on a lot of these markets right now, and there's a lot of business to be done. So from a capacity standpoint, some of these subcontractors are just stretched thin, so they don't bid. What are some of of those you said 14 or so received one or no bids at all? What are some of those industries?
So I know one that we've spent some time talking about is mechanical. So all these buildings going up have big needs for heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems. And so I think just from memory, what I understand about that one is we had three, we thought we were going into it with 3 bidders, and in the end, I think we were down to 1. But we're seeing issues with plumbing, electrical, HVAC, really all the major trades.
And then second question, I mean, that's good to know because we've been talking about just capacity building and strategies around that through the ED strategic plan. But when it comes to the CM at risk stuff, construction manager at risk, what's the threshold there? When do we is there a threshold that said this is when we're going to go that route versus the traditional bid route?
Sure. So,
Dollars.
and let me just quickly say, I mean, I think the city has a good track record over a long period of time with construction manager at risk. But generally for us, if a project becomes very large or very complex, that's usually when we're going to lean towards a construction manager at risk format. Most of the police stations that we've built have been traditional design, bid, build methodology, same with fire stations, but just depending on the complexity. There's not an exact price threshold, but generally speaking, the more complicated the project, the more likely we are going to want to have someone in early who can help coordinate all the things that happen through the design and ultimately construction process.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mayor Council. So, Mike, my first couple of questions to you, and I totally agree with the subcontractor market the way it is. This is truly a tough market, and so I totally understand why we got some bids, and in other subcontract we not receive any. Tom, I got a couple of questions for you on the bookings. The JLL projection,
Yes, sir.
this is 2023 year, FY 23 and 24?
On the return on investment analysis?
Yes.
Can we go back to that slide, Mike?
Yes.
I'm sorry. You can go backwards. There. Is that, go
Sorry.
there?
That's the one.
Correct? Good.
So when they did the study, we asked them to give us a return on investment analysis, and that's how they did ours. What we're saying is we're booking beyond that pace today.
So do you have a list of those conferences, or it's using the word potential? So are they saying we're definitely in the running, or are they saying we have opportunity to pursue 5 new events?
So when they did their analysis, this was in 2015, they weren't talking about specific conventions. They were just talking about what it would take to do a return on investment. We do have a list of further conventions. We pulled the slide from the deck in order of brevity, but we have $35 million worth of business on the books. We have the slide available. If you would like, I can pull it up.
Well, I don't know, does council, you all want to see, or you can just send it to me.
Since it's on the agenda tonight, it's item 14, right?
Right.
So could we just make some copies of it and put them at our place in the chamber, or do you need it earlier?
No, I think the chamber will be fine, Mayor, since
that
it's
okay?
agenda item.
Okay.
So on the city manager, I guess, and Mike, so on the 11.9 million request for action, what would be the remaining balance in the convention center fund, tax fund?
So, Councilmember Mitchell, let's see if we can attack it one way.
Okay.
And I'd like to call our CFO, Kelly Flannery, out to see if she can address the question.
Hi, how are you?
How you doing, Kim?
Good, nice to see you.
Welcome.
So the 11.9,
She's already on the fireman's retirement board. You know, she's already in the system, so.
I
Kelly,
think
go
we've
ahead.
talked about the dynamics of this fund and then all the projects that are attributed to it. When we look at the model back in January, when this was originally contemplated, we were expecting an interest rate of about 5%. When we actually went to market in May for the 110 million, we realized interest costs of 3.4%, so that is realized savings of about $1 million every year. So that's where the capacity is coming from. Does that answer your question?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
So
Good information, though.
After we approve this, what is the remaining
If this is
balance
approved. The fund.
in that fund?
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have that. I mean, we could go through all the projects. I think that's a discussion we want to have with all of you, to review all the projects that are currently slated.
That, I think the manager at the end of our prior discussion said that he would be coming back with that. I guess when is the question? Will it be
Sure. We could,
before or after y'all approve it?
we could do that within the next 30 days to come back with where we are with capacity. The one thing that I would like to say, Mayor, and specifically Councilmember Mitchell, it's much like how we've handled the CIP. And if you would go back in time, maybe 2 years ago, we talked about we would get to 2020 and then there would be no capacity. But then we changed the way we looked at this, we viewed the CIP, and we realized that there is capacity going forward every 2 years in terms of bond cycle. And I think it's something like 223 million. We're trying to model this the same way so that we can view the capacity which is in the fund
Okay.
and then match the projects with the capacity, as opposed to starting with capacity, spending everything, and then falling off a cliff in 2 or 3 years.
So total transparency, I'm on board because I've been complaining for a long period of time. Our convention center need to make sure it can be able to compete, instead of tier 3, be it tier 2 and tier 1. I think though, I'm not comfortable knowing we don't have an answer how much money is left in the fund. So I'm gonna take a leap of faith and support this, but I think all of us need to get comfortable that if we spend $11.9 million,
Well, wait, I mean, he's got the floor, so it's.
if we spending
his point of view.
$11.9 million, we need to get very comfortable that how much is left in the convention center tax fund.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
We can turn that around much quicker than 30 days,
Good.
okay?
I think that that's something that you're hearing, but it's not only what the financing would show that we can project. I think we ought to have a list of what we actually think we're going to spend it on, because it's one of those areas where you may be thinking, oh, I'm going to have this project, and someone else is thinking, and it could get to a place that you don't know that. I guess what is crucial for this, and this is a question about timing probably for Mike and Tom, if the council has to wait to get that fund balance report or the funds report, how far could this action be taken? I don't know. I was wondering if you could respond to, or Mr. Jones, if you respond to it, because that's what Mr. Mitchell is saying. I'm going to agree with it, but taking prior conversations and what we have, I think we've heard that we have money in the fund, so we know that.
Right.
But we're trying to make sure everybody's thinking the same thing or on the same page.
May I just add, as it relates to the 11.9, this is last in dollars, and this is up to 11.9. So perhaps CRVA will come in under budget, but this will be the last contribution in the pool. So all their funds will be extended first.
I understand that. I think we understand that.
So in a matter of timing, we are up against a really tight deadline. We've moved back this conversation several times, and now we have business on the books for October of '21. We think we can get the project done by October of '21 now, but we need to make the decision within the next few days, or we'll have to start canceling business for October of '21. We have some large pieces of business on the books for that time period. So it is crucial that we continue to move forward if that is the will of the council, and a shorter timeline. Just to make it clear, what we were saying was when we thought there was $115 million capacity last time, because of the lower interest rates, we feel like that we could use that same capacity we thought before to fund the newer amount now and not seek additional capacity out of the fund. So that's the point, is the money that you already approved for us to go out and raise was cheaper for us to raise, and so now we can afford to raise additional money.
I'm going to ask this if this is correct, and I need both Mr. Jones and Mr. Murray to say yes. The council authorized an amount of money that was already out of the fund projection. The fund has grown more, and the issue is that you're using that same amount of money, but it's grown a little bit, it's got a better outlook. You are not going into the fund that we've been talking about for other uses at all. So when did we authorize the 110?
Pardon me?
When did we authorize the original budget?
In November of
To
28.
2018.
2018.
November 28th of.
And what you're
18.
saying is that that amount in 2018 is now sustainable enough to do the reaction today, and that the new fund report that you come back with would be a report to go farther, or go out to other projects that we have been talking about before. Am I saying that correctly?
I think you're saying that correctly, and
And I know thinking, what I'm saying is 114 million is equal to what we authorized with the growth and change in the fund projection. And if we're going forward, we would still have the money that we've talked about for additional capital improvement projects.
yes.
Okay.
I also just remind everyone that when this fund was created, this was the specific use that this fund was created for. It has some new additional uses that are allowed to it, but until a few years ago, this fund was solely meant just for the convention center. And just also know that we have turned away to clear this time for convention over $87 million worth of economic impact that would have been absorbed by the hotels in this time period. So taking the industry out of the convention business slightly for a couple of years as we move forward was a good partnership with the hotels and the restaurants in our community. But they're very anxious for us to get started on this construction because it's been damaging to their results as well. They're looking forward for the windfall on the other side, which we're very excited about because we have plenty of evidence that that's exactly what's going to happen.
All right, I have Mr. Eggleston followed by the Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not going to, this is for Mr. Davis, I'm not going to penalize one project for what I think is a bigger issue, but I can appreciate that the new normal for now is that we've got a lot tighter labor market. We've got not a lot of, the companies are so busy that they maybe aren't all chomping at the bit to bid on all of our projects, but with our projections being as off as they are, as often as they are, if the new normal means that our old way of calculating our estimates doesn't work, we've got to have a new way to calculate them. Whether it's Cross Trail Trail, whether it's Convention Center, whatever, being off 252% on something is hard for me to wrap my head around. So,
10%.
no, one of these things was 252%.
He was going through the,
It was a line item, not the whole
Yes.
project. But regardless, I mean, the amount by which we are off and the frequency by which that happens is frustrating and makes it really hard to plan around. So I think I understand why that is, but we've got to adjust to that, and we've got to figure out a new way to come up with more accurate estimates. We can't keep missing this often and always on one side of the estimate.
I take your feedback to heart, and I agree.
Mr. Jones?
So, Mr. Eggleston, I'd like to add to that, but this is one of the reasons why we have the internal auditor reviewing this construction manager at risk. And I hate to use anecdotal information. There are questions out there about our process, and is it our process so cumbersome that we aren't getting people bidding on our process? So part of it's a self-reflection to see why we aren't getting some of the bids on some of these projects.
All right. Mr. Mitchell, is that, you're good?
Yes.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. So, Mr. Manager, that was my first question. Are we looking at our own processes to find out why companies aren't bidding? And how we're being perceived in the market? Secondly, when we've gone to market for the 110 million, is that right? So we borrowed the whole amount and we've locked in that interest rate, or what's the term on it, or?
Yeah, we went to market in May and we locked in that interest rate. The reason we went earlier was because a portion of that offering was also for the UNC Convention Center payment. And the expectation was that this was all going to be ready to go, so.
So how much was the offering?
It was about 140 million. I can get you the exact number.
So, and I think just to, what we're all trying to get at is we see these things and we're given this one statement and it makes it look like it's a point in time where there's 11.9 million sitting in a fund that hasn't been allocated. And we've got to see schedules on these things. And we did get this initially, I thought, when the convention center was first proposed to us a couple years ago.
We walked you through this schedule.
I thought it was that the first time?
No, we've
Before
talked
that.
about it before that, but
But we got a schedule, and it showed what else was on there. So when you say we're appropriating 11.9, over how much period of time? How does that match up with the funds that we borrowed? We just need more information. I will trust that I have no doubt we have a huge opportunity cost of not getting this thing done and getting it going. But there's something out there that we don't know. What are we not doing? What was in there that's gone away? That we see this time and time again with city projects that they go away and we didn't know they went away. So we just really need overall a 10-year schedule of how that money was going to be used. I don't believe that we were just going to let it sit there and accrue interest, I have a feeling we probably scheduled that for something different over the next 10 years. We could get more information on that, but in principle, I support this.
Mr. Jones, I hear that, 30 days will not work to get this fund out to everybody and understanding it, so I think that's
So,
inconsistent.
Mayor, members of council, what Kelly said earlier is there were some assumptions in this model. We beat the assumptions. And because we beat the assumptions, there is new capacity.
But you must have that, so why would it take 30 days?
No,
You know,
no,
why-
no. There was a different question. The question was, every project that anybody has ever thought of in the history of this fund to come back to you to see whether or not those projects are still relevant, whether it's Discovery Place or whether it's so you just want the convention fund?
Just the
The
balance.
convention.
Balance,
Yes.
convention
Oh,
center,
that's-
tax fund balance.
Okay, that's, just remember, you also have in there a land purchase that you could choose not to do. And so there are, so we'll give you this week
Okay.
what's planned for that fund related to the convention center.
Thank you.
Okay, so you'll see it in your packet. All right, do you have a follow-up?
Just a follow-up, so I want to be very sensitive to staff and to the general contractor in this regard, council. It is a new norm. It's called competition in the city of Charlotte. The good news is we are booming. Construction is going, whether it's private side, public side. It's going to cause us to think differently because you see the reflection of the prices. Subcontractors now can demand more because they're needed more, I should say. And so they're going to get much money as they can right now.
Right now.
I think for us as the city and staff, we need to find a way. I don't know you can control it because it's driven by the market, but we need to understand. So staff, I don't want to beat you guys up because you all didn't control mechanical and the GCs didn't control that. I think we need to understand what's going on in the market so we don't get blown away when we see one is 215% over what it was budgeted over a year ago. It's the market that's driving this.
All right, Mr. Winston? Ms. Mayfield?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're lacking some transparency in this conversation because right now we have had multiple statements regarding, I remember this conversation, I remember seeing this dollar amount, I remember this particular proposal. Council shouldn't even be looking at a financial ask from the CRVA without it clearly being laid out. This is what was already identified and presented. Here's the ask. This is how much will be left in the fund balance as we move forward. There's also this challenge. Government in general, we move behind the market. I just had a meeting earlier today with a business owner where his business is moving dirt. His business sees the impact of the market, good or bad, before the rest of the economy sees it. They'll see it a good 6 to 8 months prior to. If dirt stops moving on their end, that's a major factor of what's happening with development. they're already starting to see the impact, those that load and unload to actually get the dirt from point A to point B. So this idea of, okay, we've made a little more. We had conversations early in the year also about what are we doing to protect the city so that when we see a financial decline, which all numbers out, all economists that are having conversations right now are sharing concern that the impact is going to be greater than the impact that we saw in 2007, 8, and 9. Some of the conversations that we were having is to bring back to us what this speculation looks like. To have a request when we've already allocated one amount, but still what you're asking for is a greater amount than what was initially allocated. And to say, well, we think that we actually did better than we proposed, but you haven't presented that in writing, in order for someone to actually look at it prior to asking for this request. And the reality is, we have had numerous conversations of overruns. We have had numerous conversations of mismanagement. We have had numerous conversations where we've identified that there has been padding done in certain departments. There has been speculation done in certain departments. There have been speculations done on certain projects. It would be nice just to have some full transparency of what is the amount that we've actually identified, what have we actually gained, what is the ask, what commitments are out there, and how much will be left in order to continue to move the city forward. And the idea of saying, for any council member to say, well, I'm gonna hold my nose and trust the process, when the trust factor has been broken so many times over the years, it's just really amazing. It would be helpful to have the information presented so that people can actually make a decision based off information versus going back 4, 5, 6 months later and saying, oops, I didn't know. That's not what I thought I was voting on.
Mr. Phipps?
Yeah, I know we're in phase 1 right now, so assuming that phase 1 goes forward, how soon are we looking at phase 2? And then looking at phase 2, how comfortable are we that our projections will be such that they won't result in an overrun of the magnitude that we're seeing now?
Phase 2 will be much further into the future. As the manager expressed, we are talking about an acquisition of some additional land that you've been aware of, and so that would be the beginning of that. When we decide to expand the convention center, again, will be based on further research and evidence that there's a need. And so at this point, we haven't begun any of that research, but suffice it to say, the intent here is to make sure that we keep the convention center where it is and that we don't have to build a bigger convention center somewhere else. And so we're trying to make sure that this convention center remains competitive into the future. And as you probably are well aware, our competing cities are investing heavily, much more heavily than we are, in their infrastructure. But we think we can compete well in the investments that we've asked you to make.
Mr. Bakari?
Thank you. I do want to call out 2 quick positives. One, I know that a lot of folks on all sides of this have worked hard to scramble for many months to get us to this point even. So I think we do need to recognize that. I also think we need to recognize the fact that, we're seeing more business cases and pro formas and things like, $16.6 million in estimated annual increases in revenue from this investment, just over 7-year break-even point. Those are the kinds of things, even though they're quantified a bit soft still, that we need to move more into. So definite kudos for that. I do think, though, that it's really challenging for us to if it was one vendor that was kind of out there and doing something strange, or one topic area that had a unique vertical industry, challenge that changed things. But this is a laundry list of a lot of things. And I think that again points to several comments we've already heard, which is there's something, and we've known this, there's something that's broken at a more basic level. And over the last year and a half, we've gone and fixed a lot of that. But the question still remains, how many big projects are floating out there that either weren't forecasted properly, time changed, whatever the factors that push this. And Mr. Manager, I just really encourage you to think about how we go back and look at the things that maybe haven't been touched by some of the overhauls you've done to date, because, you know, it hits a certain point where we're just going to lose the public's confidence in being able to do this kind of work anymore.
All right. Dr. Harlow?
Thank you, Mayor. I share some of the concerns around the kind of, let's put the blinders over and cross our fingers, whether we had overruns in the past with other projects or not. So Mr. Murray, you mentioned, you know, we get less competitive or we lose business if we don't make action tonight. No one in here likes being put in that type of corner to say you must act or else. And I don't know, Mayor, I mean, Mr. Manager, we've got a business meeting in 3 weeks. What does 3 weeks delay do? It gives the manager time to get us, you know, a fund balance with some other schedules and stuff. If he can produce that back in a week or week and a half, it allows the council another week, a week and a half, 2 weeks to ask questions and then come back. What does that look like? I mean, how much business are we losing in those 3 weeks?
So we would end up at least canceling at least 3 major conventions in October of '21. Those are significant conventions that will be damaging to our relationship with these clients and these meeting planners. I only answer the question as asked. I'm not trying to threaten the council, and you asked me, you know, what would be the harm of postponing it. We have been postponing it for some time, and we're now with the contractors who are telling us they can get done by October of '21, but they're telling us delays past this week. They will no longer be able to guarantee that. And so I'm just relaying back to the council, just reminding everyone, it's the city's building. It's a joint project between the city and the CRVA, and I'm just acting on your behalf and letting you know that what you're asking me to answer, and that's all. I'm not trying to put any coercion.
I'm just trying to find a balance between saying, hey, you got to do it tonight versus finding some, you know, middle ground for us to meet some of the concerns of some council. So I guess for the council, just take that into account.
Okay. It's on the agenda for tonight. It's item 14. All right, is everybody up? So we have now 15 minutes. I certainly don't think that would do justice
No, it won't.
to the housing code rewrite. And I just listening, 6:30? That's right, it's 6:30, so we have 45 minutes. Sorry. I get my 6s and my 6:30s mixed up. All right, here we go. So we got 45 minutes to get done?
We can do
Is that good?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to move, Dr. Harlow is going to introduce the subject, and then I think the staff has a presentation. I also want to recognize, did I see Dr. Gibby Harrison here?
Yes.
Oh, there you are. I couldn't see behind. I don't know if you'll stand up. I know. How many of you know the public health director for Mecklenburg County? She's been here about a year now. 2 years, gosh, it goes by that, having fun, right? And she has been a part of this discussion as well. So I just wanted to make sure that she was acknowledged here. Okay.
Thanks, Mayor. So first I want to acknowledge the Neighborhood Development Committee, Vice Chair Mr. Winston, Mr. Newton, Mr. Eggleston, and in abstention, Mr. Driggs. This was referred, I feel like half this term ago now, and has been in the committee and then marching through a lot of conversations. Staff has really worked very, very hard through the spring and the summer to have conversations with as many stakeholders as possible, including but not limited to the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association, REBIC, a variety of housing groups, Charlotte Housing Justice Coalition, Equitable Communities, and really anyone who wanted to be at the table. They'll speak to all the community engagement sessions that they had. This was first referred in March, even though it felt longer, and the committee met many, many times, multiple times through the spring and the summer, and we've gotten to a point where we feel, or the committee voted out 3-1, these recommendations you'll hear tonight. Thank you for passing this along. You hear a lot about our current code enforcement process. You'll hear some conversations about in-rim repair, in-rim remedy conversations, some changes as it relates to fees and civil penalties, changes and new provisions as it relates to lighting and ventilation, space and use issues such as doors and hardware operating properly, HVAC concerns, plumbing. So a lot of different provisions around just crawl spaces and general building structures. You've received a lot of emails probably over the last couple days on both sides of this. I think this is what our job is. As Mr. Mitchell mentions all the time, we have difficult decisions to make, and this is why we're in the seats we're in. As we dealt with through this committee with the noise ordinance, there was a lot of opinions on both sides. I imagine there'll be a lot of opinions here tonight and going forward before this hits a policy agenda around are we doing enough or not. The committee, like I said, voted this out 3-1 last week, recommending these with some conversations that there are current processes already in place that we're learning that the city staff are not executing, and some because they want more nudge from the council, and I think that's that's worthy of a conversation between all of us. And also, if this council sees fit to recommend any new type of direction for that. So to hear about all that, I don't know if Ms. Wyman or Jane's going to take it going first, but we get going.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Pam Weidman, Director of your Housing and Neighborhood Services Department. As has already been stated, this was referred to the committee in March of this year, and this rewrite is about the minimum housing code. And I only point that out because I know there are a lot of complexities to code enforcement, but this was particularly about the minimum housing code. In this review of the code, we did a couple things. We looked at peer cities. There was robust community engagement. There were 6 sessions throughout the city of Charlotte. We wanted to make sure that we could connect with as many people as we could, and we had separate meetings with some of the industry groups like the Greater Apartment Association, Equitable Communities, who's here with us tonight, and several others. We also looked at legal considerations as we work through this ordinance. I want to say a special thank you to Jane Talon, our Code Enforcement Division Manager, and her team. They worked tireless efforts on this. I think through the community engagement process, we reached reasonable consensus with some of the rewrites. And so without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Jane to walk through the specifics of the standards of fitness and the rewrite. So thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As we walk through this presentation, Pam's kind of covered the first part of it. What we are recommending to Council is to enhance civil penalties and to introduce 22 standards of fitness that will provide clarity and strengthen our ability to enforce the code in the city of Charlotte. So North Carolina general statutes give us our authority. They give us the authority to then enact city ordinances. And the city ordinances that code currently enforces is our housing code, which is minimum standards of fitness for dwellings, our health and sanitation code, which is public health nuisances such as tall weeds and grass, zoning, which is land use requirements, and our non-residential building code, which is also minimum standards of fitness for commercial structures. Tonight we're here to focus on our housing code and the minimum standards that go along with that. The housing code is regulatory. It gives us rules. It's prescriptive. It gives us direction. It applies to structures. It provides standards, and it's meant to prevent the decay and deterioration and eliminate blight. Code enforcement has 4 primary functions. We are here to promote, protect, and preserve the health and safety and general welfare of our citizens, to ensure minimum standards of fitness for dwellings and commercial structures, and to ensure land is used in accordance with zoning regulations. One of the things that we want to do is we want to make sure we're balancing between what tenants need and what owners need. And so we do that through tenants want affordability, they want to live in clean and sanitary conditions, and they want a safe living space. Our property owners, they want options when we talk about bringing their properties in compliance. They want to make sure that we're offering them reasonable timeframes to make repairs, and we want to make sure that they're getting due process. One of the most important parts of what we do in code enforcement is conducting an inspection. So as it relates to our housing code, we typically receive a complaint, a petition, a public agency referral. If it's a tenant complaint, we'll go out, we'll meet with them, we'll conduct our inspection, which includes an interior inspection, every room in the dwelling. It includes an exterior inspection, which is your roof, could be your crawl space. But whenever we go out, we're going to conduct a comprehensive inspection of the dwelling. If we see something where we think a tenant needs some type of referral, or if they ask us questions, a good example is if they ask us a legal question, we'll let them know that they can contact legal aid to assist them with any legal resource they might need. If we identify 48-hour violations, we'll refer them to Community Link to find out if they're eligible to be relocated to a new place of living. And we'll also discuss next steps with them. We'll talk about them, what the code process is, and what they can anticipate from us. We identify ownership, we identify who the property manager is or a landlord, if there is one. We will make sure that if there is a 48-hour violation, we will contact them to let them know that they have a specific time frame, that specific violation needs to be completed in, and then we generate our report. And that report is mailed to the property owner and to any other parties in interest. The tenant gets a copy. The owner is notified by certified and regular mail. So we make every effort to make sure everybody involved in this particular dwelling or unit is notified of any code violations. Within our code, we have what we call 48-hour violations. And so there are 13 violations that we enforce that are specific to if they are present in a unit or a dwelling and they are not corrected within 48 hours, this is when we make that referral to Community Link. Let's talk about our code process. So you've got some attachments in front of you, and we'll get to them in just a minute. But let's talk quickly about what the housing code process looks like. So day one, we receive a complaint. Sometime between day 3 and 5, we're out there trying to get our inspection conducted, and we're issuing what's called a complaint and notice of hearing. This puts the owner on notice that they have code violations at their property and that we're going to conduct a hearing within 30 days to address those. Day 35 rolls around, we conduct our hearing. Based on the repairs that are needed to that structure, if it exceeds 65%, per ordinance, we will issue a demolition order. If the repairs are less than 65%, per ordinance, we will issue a repair order. That compliance, they'll have a 30-day compliance date, and when that expires, hopefully the unit is repaired. If not, there's additional action that code can take. Some of the questions that we received throughout this process were about what tools are available that we might not be using. The first one we have is in-rem repair. And if you could look at your housing code process, you have a 4-page document that talks about the housing code process. And we look at that, it gives you lots of options for kind of how our process works. But the one I want to point out to you is on pages 3 and 4. And so when you look at page 3 in the far right column, and I don't have a slide for this, so I apologize for that, it talks about the city's action and what we can do with an in-rem repair. And the reason I want to kind of point this out is to just let you know that we are welcome, we are willing to do in-rem repairs. It's just a very complicated process. It's a very time-consuming process. And we have to be really careful about what units we're choosing to do in-rem repairs. Typically, we have a property owner that wants to be fixing the property. So we'd have to go through some things. We'd have to determine that, number one, a property owner did not want to fix the property, that there was nobody engaged to do that process. We'd have to go through a cost estimating process. We'd have to get contractors out. We'd have to award a contract. We'd have to go ahead and schedule work, which could displace a tenant or an occupant. We may have to secure a warrant to access the structure. Somebody may not be willing to allow the city to come in and do repairs for them. And then we've got to get the repairs conducted. If it's a vacant structure, we would then have to turn around and secure the structure to make sure nobody broke into it. and then we would place a lien on the property, and then hopefully be able to close our case. The thing that would come next is something that we don't use now, is a lien foreclosure. And so there's a lot of steps that would go into a lien foreclosure. I'm not the expert, so I'm just going to speak to some generalities that we've been advised about. Is, we'd have to review those on a case-by-case basis. We'd have to look at, is it a lien that we really want to foreclose on? There's a time period we would have to wait. We'd then have to, the county would come in front of us as far as if there's any back taxes owed on the property. So we'd have to look and see, is this a property that's worth foreclosing on? Is it something where the city believes that they can recoup the monies that they've put in for an in-rem repair? So it's a relatively complicated process if we were to go down that road. Another question that came up as we were going through this process was, what are we doing to currently relocate tenants? And so currently, when we have a 48-hour violation, we make that referral to Community Link. The tenant is assessed. Community Link determines whether or not they're eligible for any relocation assistance. One of the other questions we had was, can we bill if the city relocates somebody? And it's our understanding that legally, we do not have the authority to bill a property owner if we have to relocate a tenant from one of their units. Committee action. So a recap of our committee discussions. We've met several times. We started meeting in March. That's when the committee was introduced to the topic of the housing code. We did an overview on April 17th. On May 15th, we reviewed the code process. We talked about common violations. We talked about considerations for change and best practice research. On June 19th, we received community feedback, and we provided staff recommendations. Our July 17th meeting was canceled. That was our opportunity to have some additional meetings with the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association, REBIC, and Equitable Communities to talk about the standards of fitness and the civil penalties that would be proposed. And then our last meeting was this past Wednesday on September 18th, where we gave the committee our final recommendations and asked for it to be voted to full council for review. And so Pam talked about already, we did peer city review, we looked for community input, we talked to our industry stakeholders, we talked about legal considerations, and the reason that we want to make these changes is so that we can revise any potential conflicting language, we can update the fine structure, and we can strengthen our standards of fitness. We went out to the community. We had 6 engagement sessions. We had a total of 86 people actually join us in those sessions. We then also put out an online survey. We had a total of 128 responses between our in-person engagement sessions and our survey responses. And some of the themes that we got out of that was that people don't have a familiarity with our code. I think unless you actually are involved in the process, you report a tenant complaint, you're going to have little knowledge around the code enforcement process. And we had a total of 30 people out of that group that had actually participated at some point in the code process. We had a lot of themes throughout the engagement process. I would say that depending on how you self-identified kind of would tell you where you were at. So we had people that said civil penalties as they currently stand at $100 for the first day and $10 each additional day were too high. We had people that said that higher civil penalties would adversely impact affordable housing, that harsher penalties are needed for repeat and chronic offenders, and that one of the concerns is that absentee landlords and sublords are not addressed. From a process standpoint, we should only enforce life safety issues. Some felt that the process takes too long. Others felt like owners should get additional time for compliance. We got feedback that in-rem repair should be used more frequently, that the citizens would support a multifamily inspection program, that landlords should be required to be contacted prior to code coming out or prior to a tenant calling 311 to submit a complaint, and that in addition to our environmental court process, we should also be utilizing Superior Court. For the tenants, they really wanted pre-occupancy inspections. We don't have statutory authority to do that. Tenants wanted to be provided with a minimum standards checklist at move-in. They wanted tenants' rights, minimum standards, and the enforcement process may be posted at rental properties or sent to tenants. They wanted tenants to require to provide evidence that the landlord was made aware of an issue, and then tenants required to provide access for repairs. We had a lot of discussion around mold. We talked about air conditioning. There was support for a provision in the ordinance as far as air conditioning is concerned. Some thought that an operable air conditioning should be a 48-hour remedy, just like no heat in the winter is. They wanted to add language that requires AC for populations vulnerable to respiratory health issues. And there was concern about enforcement of older properties and air units. Another theme was that roach infestation in one unit should require an entire building to be treated. So our proposed ordinance revisions. The first recommendation that we have is our civil penalties. So currently, it is $100 for the first day and $10 for each additional day. The committee, the people that, the stakeholders and the city came together and came to a place where we want to recommend $100 per day, and that begins the first day of noncompliance. We also talked about the standards of fitness, and we had several meetings with Greater Charlotte Association, Apartment Association, with REBIC, with Equitable Communities, to talk about our 22 standards of fitness. We came that what we want to do with our space and use is that we want to make sure that we're addressing the condition of all interior doors and door hardware. For light and ventilation, we want to clarify that windows must be made of glass only, and we want to add a couple new provisions for kitchen exhaust and clothes dryer vents. For plumbing, we want to require an adequate and safe water heater, and we want to require that kitchen and bath fixtures be operational and sealed to eliminate water intrusion. For our heating facilities, we need to clarify that portable heaters of any kind can only be considered a supplemental heat source. For structural standards, we want to make sure we provide clarity and improve enforcement of various structural features related to our foundations, interior walls, ceilings, roofs, and porches. For property maintenance, we want to improve enforcement as it relates to cabinetry and clothes dryers. And then we have recommended a new provision requiring that any existing cooling system be operational and maintained. And this specific one is consistent with tenant landlord law. So our process enhancements. We are going to implement a multifamily enhanced rental inspection program, and this will be based on certain criteria. A comprehensive assessment of a multifamily complex will be initiated, and we also are going to update and work with the Community Relations Committee to make sure that our websites are updated, that they have information for tenants, that we can collaborate together to try to get as much information out and available to tenants as possible so they know their rights. And as far as mold is concerned, we want to continue our current process. So currently, code enforcement addresses mold through causal factors, water intrusion, lack of ventilation, those types of things. And because mold is such a complicated issue, our goal is to continue to address it in that manner. We feel like our ability to cite a property for unclean and unsanitary conditions is able to get us to a place where we can address those conditions for tenants for remediation. And we had Ms. Gibby Harris from the Health Department. She came and she spoke with the committee and provided some really good information. As time passes, this particular issue will be a collaboration, but it is our belief that the county health department, they are the experts. They have the training, and we can build a partnership with them, but we feel like when we talk about the subject of mold, that's really somewhere where they would take the lead. And so our proposed transition plan. So between October and December of this year, we need to make sure that we do an external education plan with the community. Internally, we would have to update policy and procedures and conduct staff training, and then potentially anticipate a January 1, 2020 date for the new ordinance, the updated ordinance to go into effect. So our next steps are to send out notice of public hearing. We have to advertise twice for a public hearing. Once we hold the public hearing, then we can ask council to vote on the updated ordinance. So thank you for your time.
You're being very generous to thank us. We should thank you. This is well done, a really good explanation. Thank you. So, as the committee chair, do you have any comments?
Yes, sure, I'll comment now. Thanks, Jane, you've really kind of jumped in and, you know, really helped bring some explanation from the code side and the process side of what we truly have authority over versus what we don't, what we have authority over versus what we could be employing. And so I hope that some of the questions center around that. Also, you know, thanks for your comments on, you know, this being just kind of one tenet of tenant. I didn't mean that pun there. So one component of the full ordinance when we're talking about housing code versus health and sanitation versus zoning and non-residential building code. I want the council to really, I know there'll be questions, there's already questions around how does this prevent a future Lake Arbor or other things like that? Are there other Lake Arbors in the pipeline? So just to kind of put that all out there, I think that there's a number of things in this ordinance rewrite and the proposed recommendations that help address some of that. Particularly what we already have in the tool belt that we just necessarily have not been using. In-rim repair, as Jane mentioned, is a complicated and long, arduous process, but it's something that we certainly could use that actually could lead to more more liens and possible foreclosures on properties if we deem them fit. And a situation like Lake Arbor is possibly something we could have explored. Other things as it relates to the what I'm considering some of the basics of improvements to this thing is you know, proper heating sources, safe water heaters, kitchen exhausts and clothes dryers. Those are things I think a lot of us in here take for granted that just wasn't in the code. Those are just basic things as it relates to living in any space. And so adding that type of stuff around cabinetry, cooling systems, making sure doors have hardware, these are things that I don't want us to look at as we try to find some perfect solution to all of this, that we forget about all this kind of what we consider good, simple things that should already be in our code. So I'll speak to that. I'm sure there'll be questions, and if there are questions about did the committee discuss certain things, I'm sure we can address that too here.
All right, thank you, Dr. Harlow. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. So thank you to the work that code enforcement has done in the committee on this. And I think it is a good first step, but a code is only as good as the practice.
Sure.
And if it really gets used. So to your point, there were a couple things that were identified that I think most of council didn't know about before with in-rim repair and taking out a judgment on a landlord who doesn't make the repairs if we're not doing them. And so I guess my question is, are we going to also then use those tools more aggressively, especially in a situation where we have a landlord that we don't want to lose that property, but we don't feel like that landlord is really trying to do anything. And we're in this environment where, you know, a lot of the land that they're sitting on is just too valuable. And so there's this complacency to they'll just sit on it until it's time to sell it. So are we of a mindset that we're going to be more aggressive with some of those tools so that we can change the culture in Charlotte of telling landlords that, yeah, we're going to enforce this, you know, if you're not going to do this on a timely manner? So aside from the changes, which I support, are we going to really have a practice of better enforcement or more assertive enforcement?
So I think we have that opportunity. I will tell you now, our cases that have repair orders on them, we do vet them to see if they're really viable for in-rem repair. We just really haven't had any properties that we felt like were a good match for using those funds. Because our concern is that we don't want to invest $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 of the city's money and then just board a house up and let it sit.
For a house, I would agree, but for a multifamily, you know, a small amount of money in an in-rem repair means that we could take a lien on that property, which we can't do with Lake Arbor because we didn't do the repairs.
So what legal has advised us is the first thing we have to do is definitively determine that the property owner has no intention of repairing the property. And I don't know that we've come across they're absolutely not going to repair a property. We get that they're going to take their time, they're going to, you know, be very slow about it, which then they're going to be subject to the civil penalty fines. But I've not come across in a multifamily complex where a property owner has just said, I'm not going to do this. And I believe legal was very clear with that. We would have to definitively determine that a property owner absolutely was not going to repair a unit.
Yeah, that sounds hard to do.
You can't prove a negative.
Yeah, okay. My second question is about the mold. And that, I understand it's not all within our control, but I hope that we'll continue to work on that issue, because mold is really one of those things that it might not affect some people, and for other people could be deadly. And so unlike maybe missing hardware and things that should be just basic parts of a property that somebody rents, I don't know, I haven't really heard that we've got a better solution to mold, that maybe even, we invest a little bit more on the upfront of testing it to see whether or not, it's expensive, but to spend $1,000 or whatever to test the air quality in there, we can tell right away if it's at a dangerous level or not.
So I think that's, you kind of hit the nail on the head, is that we don't know if the mold is good or bad. And our staff is not currently trained to make an assessment related to mold. That's where unclean and unsanitary conditions work well for us. We will take a doctor's note from a tenant if they feel like, if a doctor feels like their health is being compromised, we will take that information and we will refer them to Community Link for assistance to get
Okay.
them into a new unit.
We might not have that, but there's plenty of companies out there that do. It's just kind of expensive.
Right.
And so that's probably why no one wants to do it. But, I've had it at my own house, and I'm allergic to mold. And I'll tell you, it burns, you have a headache, you have asthma pretty quickly with very low levels that you don't even see if you have an allergy to it. So I was in one of the apartments at Lake Arbor, and you could see it, and they just painted over it. So that, to me, had that been tested, there would have been a case right there. But I guess that's something that we have to work with the state on. There's just not that much we can do even at the city and county level, is that right? To tell a landlord that the level of spores in the air and, knowing what those are, less than $1,000, they can test that. There is no inclination or will to say, we'll work with the health department, and if it's determined that there is a dangerous level of spores in the air, it has to be remediated?
So we have opened the lines of communication with the health department. The health department deals with commercial structures. So I think that's where some of the challenges is. We're dealing with residential.
And so is that a loophole, or is that just who gets to say, it is a commercial structure to the landlord. It's their commercial property.
From a tax
People live
card
there,
purpose.
but, so is that a loophole that we need to address on our state agenda, or?
Gibby, did you want to help me address that one?
Dr. Harris. Dr. Harris, welcome to our
Yes.
friendly abode today.
Dr. Harris has been very wonderful in giving us information, so.
Thank you, Dr. Harris.
Thank you. Mayor, City Council. This is an issue that is coming up nationally that does not seem to have a really good, solid solution to it right now. Unfortunately, or for however you want to look at it, in the state of North Carolina, our staff who do inspections in the community are agents of the state. They are certified by the state of North Carolina and have specific guidance from the state of North Carolina through statute and through North Carolina Administrative Code as to what they can do and where they have authority. Unfortunately, individual apartments are not one of those places. And that is just the nature of where we are right now. There's a lot of conversation happening about mold. Mold is challenging. Mold is everywhere. It's in the leaves that are sitting on the ground outside. There are different types of mold, and there are not very clear guidelines, even at the national level, about when mold becomes a health issue. That's another problem that we have, is there's not clarity around that. There are a couple of institutions that will test for it, and it is quite expensive. And there are varying degrees of verification at the federal level as to what those test results actually mean. So it puts us in a rock and a hard place, I think. Obviously, from the public health perspective, the best thing to do is to prevent it in the first place. Mold does not grow if we don't have moisture. So especially in those housing units, if we can keep moisture out of the housing units, the likelihood that we're going to have mold goes down significantly. But unfortunately, with the specific guidance and administrative code that we have from the state of North Carolina right now, our inspectors are not in a position to go into an individual unit and inspect it for mold. So, as you said, do we have loopholes? We've got them in probably a couple of different areas
Thank you.
in state statute.
Thank you.
All right. Is that Joe's? Okay. Mr. Newton?
Yeah, so maybe that's space for a legislative agenda item, and I know that we've had discussion about that in committee as well. So the mold topic and reaching out to our partners and the General Assembly on that. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Pam, Anna, all the folks at Code putting together this presentation. I think there's a lot of good stuff here. Then again, it's also, so we have to look at this within the prism of Lake Arbor. You know, that's why we're here, right? I mean, that's why all this came up. And I think that that it's not the silver bullet, right, to address many of the concerns that we're facing with the residents who have been displaced at Lake Arbor. I think it's really important that we acknowledge that there's a lot of work that needs to be done moving forward. That work can continue in committee at the same time. I think we need to acknowledge that we have a lot of work left to do with our community partners on this. And then also, you know, staff partners and the county. I think, you know, to the extent that they've been included in this process, that's been really fantastic. But I want to explore this idea of in-rim repair and remedy a little bit further. I don't know if everybody fully understands what that means, and so maybe I can get some clarity on this as well. What we're talking about here is we're talking about actually whenever a code violation exists, to the extent that there is this outlier of a situation like we've experienced with Lake Arbor, and the landowner, in multifamily situations, the landowner decides to drag their feet and not make the repairs, we can go in, make those repairs, and then bill the landowner for that, right?
Technically, yes, under interim repair, we can go in and make the repairs. We would bring it to you just like we would bring an interim demolition to city council. We would come to you and ask you for the authority to conduct an interim repair. We can't proceed until you provide us with that direction.
And then thereafter, if they've continued to fail to make the repair, then we can place a lien on the property and then seek remedies that could eventually foreclose upon that property.
If we are the ones that do the repairs, yes, we can put the lien on the property.
And in that instance, so what we've seen with Lake Arbor is we've seen tenants that clearly need repairs made on their property, and at the same time have now been displaced. I think with an in-rim remedy that we pursue, we would essentially be cutting that off, right? We would be more proactive in ensuring that the repairs are made and that these folks don't get displaced. And I think that that's where we do need more action. As the chair was mentioning, he said nudge, right? We need to maybe start to talk about a way to kind of nudge our staff members in that direction of in-rim repair. I would, say maybe we need to do a little bit more of a push towards that direction. It seems to me that we've already, so by the time we get there, right, we've already all but completed all we need to complete. We've already gone through a 65-day period. We've already, explored the possibility of receiving or obtaining the lien in and of itself. How much more is it, particularly when we know the extent of the damage that could be created through displacement? How much more is it of a burden on us to just go all the way through?
So the first thing I want to caution us about is on an interim repair, when we go out and do an initial inspection of a property, keep in mind, we're only citing for minimum standards. I think when we would go in and do an interim repair, that we would have to go beyond minimum standards. I think we have to be careful about what we might be uncovering during that process. So I do have a little bit of concern about the scope of work. We would probably have to go back and develop a new scope of work so that when we went in and did repairs, we would have a better idea of what that actual cost was going to be. I would also, just recall that we have to kind of prove that the property owner is not going to make a repair. So when we talk about Lake Arbor, the property owner has been trying to make repairs. So I don't know that we would have been able to meet that burden in a situation like that because they're actively doing some repairs. But ultimately, if we could go in and get the repairs done and then put the lien on the property, we would definitely be willing to pursue in those instances where we can do that.
It's our job. So I look at this and I feel like it's our job to protect the residents of the city. We know that there are many multifamily situations where residents are being taken advantage of to the extent that the repairs that are needed just to have the premises habitable, just so they can live in it, aren't being made, and they are then, after the fact, through no fault of their own, are being displaced. And I feel like it's our job to see to it that that no longer happens. This is the way. This is the way we do it. And so I think it's also important. It's important to note that at some point in time, and we've seen this before, right? Whenever we go through condemnation, whenever a lien is actually filed, at some point in time, the inaction of that landowner is an expression of that person failing to do the job and saying that they're not going to do it. Even if they tell us verbally that they're going to continue to do it, there comes a point where that inaction, I think, speaks volumes. And we're looking at a process where we wait 65 days plus. If they haven't done it over 65 days, and that's 30 days after, right? 30 plus days after we've had a hearing, and they maybe have made promises, maybe them dragging their feet is all we need to know that they're not going to do it, and we should explore those interim remedies at that point in time, which I just don't see being, given the problem it creates for the people that we have a responsibility and an obligation to in this city, shouldn't be that much of a burden for us on the flip side of that. And the fact that this is probably, these are the outliers, right? This isn't something that happens all the time. So when it does happen, it's not going to be the thing that breaks the piggy bank, so to speak.
I think it's a good point.
So,
Mr. Newton, we have.
So that's my nudge. That's my push to city staff members.
We've got 6 minutes, and we have 3 council members that would like to speak now. And then Mr. Jones, I just say that, how do you want to do this? We can be a little bit late. We've got 5 minutes left. Mr. Bakari.
I'll be quick. I'll frame it in the form of a question for later follow-up. If it hasn't been done, I would really appreciate staff and the committee engaging maybe an economist group or our economist or something. Clearly, this stuff is no-brainer as it relates to quality of life and the importance of that. I just am curious what the impacts on affordability of housing this would have at a more macroeconomic perspective.
In addition to that, what would be the loss of housing as a result of that as well? So not just where the rents lie, but where the unit count would be impacted. Okay, Mr. Winston?
So I sent all of you a email this morning, and I also submitted it to the clerk for the record.
You'll have to read it, Mr. Winston, for it. We do at I'm sorry, can't even talk anymore. Verbatim minutes. So you need to read the statement.
All right, well, I'll read it then.
Okay.
So to my colleagues, please go back and take a look at the live stream from the last neighborhood development meeting. The responses I have been receiving from community members over the past week suggest we should approve the changes that staff has recommended thus far only if the minimum housing code remains in committee. I agree with this. We should pass these changes, but this housing code should remain in committee. It seems to be our best chance, our best tool to deal with Lake Arbor's, but also in trying to find some remedy for displacement of residents due to conditions like Lake Arbor. These changes do not deal with that displacement. The minimum housing code seems to be the best route to create both carrots and sticks to compel multifamily property owners to prevent displacement due to the degree of conditions in places like Lake Arbor. In it, we have tools to be used for, and this is quote from code enforcement, alleviating substandard housing. And I would point out that substandard housing to me is subjective, and it is different than what is in the code. I will say that, as we saw in Lake Arbor, there were many units that were legal, or at least situations or conditions in those apartments that were not subject to a code enforcement violation, particularly as we talked about with mold. But I can tell you that those apartments were uninhabitable. If our fire department went to a first aid call, I guarantee the officer would tell his crew to put on their respirators when entering those apartments. Those places should not be considered livable, and they are right now. We should be using these tools and applying them from a resident-centric approach, as opposed to just getting the property in line or working with the property owner. We have no solutions right now that give residents relief immediately, and we need to find those. Ted Follett has described some legal tools that we have, but we do not apply. If we have more ways to hold property owners who are maintaining substandard living conditions accountable, then we should be doing so. There are ways, I believe, that we can also create carrots. We should look at this from a lens of our NOAA preservation. Can we create a set of standards that, if met, could create a pathway to partnership with the city? These standards would have to compel owners to have a track record of responsibility with their property to qualify. The owner of Lake Arbor would not qualify to those standards, I would hope. Situations that are similar to Lake Arbor need more sticks. Lake Arbor represents those substandard housing situations that might not technically be illegal. I continue to go back to the moldy apartment that I visited. It is my understanding, again, that the mold problem did not constitute a code violation because mold remediation is not written into our code for many reasons. However, you couldn't breathe in that apartment. We need language that gets a person that is living in situations like this into housing that meets our standards immediately until those standards can be met by the property owner. This would be something different than our current arrangement with Community Link. Those costs associated with temporary relocation should be the responsibility of the property owner. In the end, there is much we have to do. The work on the minimum housing code done in committee was good to bring our standards more up to date, but we need it to be a tool in dealing with the realities of displacement due to aging and neglected properties. In the end, this work needs to continue in committee now, and we need to go further. And I heard that there are some loopholes, and we should attack those loopholes with this policy, with our policy. And if it means going to bat for our residents in court with them, fighting for their rights, then we need to do that. If that means running afoul of legislation that continues to put corporations and profits over the people that it is our duty to protect and ensure their public safety, then we should do that, and we should do that through this code. And I hope we will pass this when it gets on our agenda, but only under the condition that it remains in committee, so we can keep working on it.
All right, Ms. Ashmira, and that's the last speaker. So as Ms. Ashmira wraps up, Mr. Jones, we'll go on downstairs. Is that appropriate?
Yes.
Ms. Ashmira?
Thank you very much. I'll keep it really brief. Some of the points are already addressed by my colleagues. I just needed a clarification on slide number 22, where you got the cooling system. So it says only for existing. So
Yes, that's correct. We're not asking that we require every owner to go back and retrofit their unit with air conditioning. We're asking that if a unit is currently provided and it breaks, that the owner is required to maintain it.
Got it. Why is that? I mean, why are we not asking for the retrofitting?
So I think we kind of take the approach that if an owner has provided it, it needs to work properly. And typically with things that are not actual, we can't actually cite them for under the ordinance, kind of our standard line to a property owner as well. If you're providing it, even though we can't cite you for it, you need to make sure that it operates properly, whether that's a door or, in this case, an air conditioning unit. If the tenant removed into that unit and these things worked, they should continue to work for them for the life of them living in that unit.
So I know under state statute, the heating is required, heating system. Is air conditioning not part of the state requirement?
It is not. A unit's only required to have screens. If they don't have an approved ventilation system, they're required to have screens in the windows.
Okay, thank you. One last question. On for clarification, on slide number 24, you got multifamily enhanced rental inspection. So current process is discretionary. So is that when, if someone calls us, there is an inspection? So how is it different with the enhancement?
So currently, it's more of a, as we see a pattern develop, then we try to take a more in-depth look at a particular property, specifically multifamily. This would actually, this is something we don't need the ordinance change for us to implement. We are in the process of implementing this. We're going to use our data to identify those places where we're starting to see a lot of code activity. And if it meets a certain threshold within a specific amount of time, then we're going to do a more in-depth review. We're going to pull the cases. We're going to see what we're citing out there. We're going to look at the specific violations. Are they 48-hour violations? Are they violations that require a permit? And start to do a more in-depth look. And then are they specific to one building? Is this a pattern across the entire complex? And then depending on what criteria it meets, would end in either an inspection of an entire building or potentially an inspection of an entire complex.
Got it. I mean, I like the approach where it's more comprehensive, where you're tracking based on the data or previous violations to avoid or prevent future lake harbors that we, so currently so let's say if there is if there is a complaint, are we only, was the current process was only inspecting just for the specific problem, or wasn't the comprehensive report?
We only inspect in that unit or that single-family dwelling, but it is a comprehensive inspection of that dwelling.
Got it. Okay, and how do you define multifamily? Is that anything more than single family? So is it 2, 3, 4, anything more than that?
We're going to define multifamily as 24 or more units, which I believe is consistent with our housing policy.
Okay, thank you.
All right, it's been a very informative process, thanks to the committee and the work that you've done and the challenges. We're going to go ahead and get started. We've got our public forum as the first thing on the agenda, so as soon as we get enough people settled, we'll go ahead and start the meeting. Thank you.